This is a 34-year-old Mormon woman named Hannah Neeleman. She was once at Juilliard in New York City, a trained ballerina. She now lives on a farm in Utah with her husband and 8 kids. This reporter from the British paper, the Sunday Times, went to the farm, interviewed Hannah, published an article, Meet the Queen of the Trad Wives. So the internet blew up like this was like the Handmaid's Tale. But if this is what she wants to do, then, you know, this is America. You get to do that. What is your problem with it?
Seeing as how she did go to Juilliard, it's really impressive that her parents said, yeah, go live your dreams. Now, what the internet is upset about is her now husband coming in and saying, actually, instead of following your dreams, you're going to be my wife and have all these children for me. I mean, they got married 3 months after they met each other, which is also a very common Mormon thing. And so people are saying, did she actually have a choice? Was she kind of pushed into this?
Hey Rych Babes, today we're going to dive into a story of a beautiful woman named Hannah, who is behind the Ballerina Farm. Hannah's journey began in a prestigious Juilliard school where she pursued her passion for ballet with dreams of becoming a professional dancer. But life took a sharp turn when she married her husband, a very wealthy man, and moved to a farm. Now she is a mom of 8, living a life that's far from where she really wanted, which is the stage. On the surface, it may seem like a dream to her, a big farm, a big family, and a devoted husband, but beneath all that, I feel like there's a reality that many women can relate to. Despite her husband's wealth, Hannah finds herself without the luxury of help. No maids, no nannies, and just an egg apron. Instead of plane tickets to Greece like she long wanted, why hasn't he bought her tickets to Greece? He can afford it, right? This story isn't just about a woman who traded in her dreams for the family, but also sacrifice and is the exhaustion that often comes with the responsibility of raising a family. It's just a reminder to show how sometimes a man's dream for you, whether it's having a lot of children or often leading a certain lifestyle, can overshadow your own desires and passions, leaving you feeling trapped and unfulfilled. Religion and traditional roles can sometimes play a huge factor in your decision making of not pursuing your dreams, and it's very easy to lose sight of who you are and what you truly want. Hannah's story is a cautionary tale for women who might find themselves putting their dreams on hold for the sake of their husbands or their family. So today's video, I'm not going to hold you guys any longer. We're going to explore some videos that I got from TikTok as to why it's so important to never lose sight of your own dreams, no matter how much you love someone. So let's get into it, and remember, your dreams are just as important as anyone else's. I'll see you at the end of this video.
Ballerina Farms has just made her first TikTok addressing the Times article. And what she says at the end of this video has a lot of people concerned. And remember, this is her first time talking about the Times article since it released.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a reporter come into our home to learn more about our family and business. We thought the interview went really well, very similar to the dozens of interviews we had done in recent memory. We were taken back, however, when we saw the printed article, which shocked us and shocked the world by being an attack on our family and my marriage, portraying me as oppressed, with my husband being the culprit. This couldn't be further from the truth. Nothing we said in the interview implied this conclusion, which leads me to believe the angle taken was predetermined. For Daniel and I, our priority in life is God and family. Everything else comes second. The greatest day of my life was when Daniel and I were married 13 years ago. We aren't done having babies.
You team ballerina or team husband?
Okay, that's my birthday present from Daniel. Hoping their tickets to Greece.
Ballerina Farms, Times article recap with some added context. The clip we started with is from a controversial moment that people are looking at in hindsight, and even at the time we're like, wait a second, so for her birthday, she works really hard, this woman's got 8 kids, busting her butt, wanted tickets to Greece, which he can absolutely afford, we'll get to that in a minute, but this is what she got.
Ooh, a hat I can wear in Greece.
It's not a hat.
It's not. Oh, my A-game friend! Eggs in it.
Great, now you can gather eggs.
So cute. It's really cute. It's a cute one.
That's the best. You're welcome.
Thanks, honey.
Not for a long time.
Hannah Neeleman is known here on TikTok as Ballerina Farms, her husband, and her 8 children. And the biggest question in this trad wife lifestyle is if this is the way these people want to live their lives, then let them. Well, 1, they're not actually living a traditional lifestyle. We'll get to that in a minute. And 2, this article calls into question the biggest question. Do they want to? Now, obviously, we can't answer that question globally because every person is different, but considering what she told this reporter and the dynamics that were observed, it kind of seems like it's a no in this case. So let's meet the fam and the precursor controversies like we see with the apron that happened back near her birthday. Now, this is Hannah Neeleman. She has 8 children with her husband, Daniel. Now, Hannah comes from a fairly moderate background. Daniel does not. Daniel's father has been the successful owner of 5 airlines, one of which he actually ended up selling to Southwest, who has a reported net worth of $400 million. But one aspect of this that I really, really wish more people were discussing, this is what his dad is worth. That is what he is worth. And there might be a prenup. We don't know about that because I know everyone's like, oh, they're so traditional. Girl, these are rich people. I mean, rich. Say it from like here, rich. They know how to keep their money safe. She does come from a large family, but much more humble beginnings than him. He was raised like 1%, silver spoon, very, very well off, which is why kind of probably he wants to go off and play the like Little House on the Prairie life, because that's not the life she was looking for. So our girl, Ballerina Farms, actually wanted to be a professional ballerina. She ended up going to Juilliard for a summer camp, then saved up, moved to New York, and went back to Juilliard on her own, which is where fate's misfortune ran her into our dude, Daniel. I saw her and I was ready to go. Sign me up, I was thinking. Let's get married. But she wouldn't go on a date with me for 6 months until he coerced her into going on a date by using his father's money and privilege. So like a lot of our grandma's stories, they're not good stories. He actually ended up using his privilege and position with his father to get himself sat next to her on the same flight, even though she had been clear that she did not want to date him, and that is how they started dating. What's that sound on here? Grandma, you little... Start dating, and she wants to date for a while, because remember, she's a Juilliard. She is literally building this whole future that she is so set on, and he tells her that's not going to work for me. Basically, we're going to have to break up if you won't marry me right now. So she makes her choice, and that choice leads her to be the youngest expecting undergraduate at Juilliard in modern history. Again, not what she wanted. And I know people are going to be like, well, then why didn't she just say no? If you've never been young, in love, and coerced enough to understand this whole thing, I can't explain it to you. In the article, she says, well, we both gave up a lot. However, the reporter points out, not seeing anything that he gave up because this was the life that he wanted to live. This was his dream. She wanted to be a ballerina. He keeps speaking over her and tells everyone how much she loves it, and this is great, even though sometimes she can't get out of bed for a week because she's exhausted. And anyone, I sat and watched, because I'm not really a Ballerina Farms fan, I sat and watched probably 100 of their videos. You can tell this woman is exhausted, and anyone who's following her who says that they couldn't, I don't believe you. Throughout the article, with him interrupting her, every bit of space that could be a space just for her to be her has been overrun by his wishes, what he wants, and how he wants everything to go, including a barn that was supposed to be a ballet studio that is now a classroom. Even the pressure to keep reproducing is very clear here as he interrupts her again. Is the aim to fill this 15-seater van? And he says, someday, yeah, Daniel says, and she literally says, we're getting old and worn out, which that's not a we, it's her body that's got to produce this. And she says, we'll see. However, he's like, oh, no. She also strongly implied that she's not even in charge of whether she gets to choose to have painkillers during birth or not. The only time that she had an epidural, which she said was kind of great, which she tried to say out of the earshot of her husband, was because he wasn't there because he was busy at shipping day. I'll meet you at part 2 to talk about some of the other stuff, but these really were a lot of the big ones. However, couldn't cover this in 5 minutes.
When you know, you know. When you know.
Ballerina Farms, the Times article with added context, part 2. Where I left you, he was telling her that, you know, we're gonna have more kids, whether she kind of wants to or not, and he interrupted her through the whole thing. Really, I know that he was trying to make himself look like this great, involved, whatever, did the exact opposite in this article. Now we get into the business of tradwifing. Now we have to remember that the whole tradwife thing is a moniker that was deemed from the outside world, when in reality the two women mentioned in this article, because they did bring up Nara Smith also, do not qualify as traditional wives, because the unspoken part there is biblically traditional in these cases. Not all, there are some people living in what they call a traditional lifestyle and mean more of like a homesteading cottagecore situation, but this has a lot of other connotations, and even this article points out that they don't do a lot of the speaking about that online, but they did a lot in person, because this is very, very linked to them being Mormon. None of the women mentioned in the article identify as trad wives or traditional women, because one, they're both extremely hardworking moms, no matter how that kind of presents out to the world. Nara Smith even had her own clapback about that.
I wasn't aware that finding joy in cooking for my husband and kids would automatically mean that I just slave away in the kitchen. I don't have a job, and I have a whole production team at my house making that happen. To clarify, none of that is true. I'm a working mom, juggling all kinds of hats and responsibilities. Cooking has always been a massive part of my life.
Now, I thought Nara Smith being included was interesting, and I always, when I see her included in this tradwife discussion, find it interesting because, one, her partner gives just a very different vibe as far as the level of support that's there. Not to mention, she's always been pretty clearly working on top of being a mom and all of that stuff. Even just like the TikTok thing, that is also a pretty labor-intensive job. So, you know, that's lover or hater. That's kind of up to you to determine where you sit on that one. My personal stance, yeah, I see someone who makes things from scratch and people have questions about all that Onezwa stuff or whatever, but as far as like tradwife, I don't really see it, no. Back to Ballerina Farm and the part in this article that makes you go, huh? So Daniel understands the importance of employees. They have 3 full-time employees on the farm, 30 at the warehouse, more than 10 in the office, and a creative director for the visuals on their website and all of this stuff. However, when you get into the house where there are a lot of children, and she definitely would need some help in the house, they have someone who helps clean, but they don't have anyone to watch the kids when they go food shopping or anything like that. And I remember when my kids were really little, I didn't have 8, I only had 2, but man, going to the grocery store by yourself felt like a friggin' vacation, because Daniel did not want any nannies in the house, which also raises questions as to how much access she has to money or decision making if she's at home with 8 kids and is not allowed to pull that trigger and make that decision. Because at the end of the day, no matter how well intentioned you are, no matter how good of a parent you are, with that many kids around, you're just not going to be able to be everywhere all at once. There are many infamous examples that you can look to see what happens with these very, very large, very, very media forward families that have a ton of kids and no extra help within the house. That results in the older set of children being parentified because they are inevitably going to have to care for the younger ones. On top of parentified older children, that media forwardness turns the family into a business, and that makes everybody an employee. Which makes you wonder, if all the other employees deserve this kind of support, full-time employees, then why is support not necessary within the house to those that are supposed to be most precious? At the end of the day, every video that you watch on Ballerina Farms, if you really watch it, every single video is an advertisement for the family business, where you can order weekly delivery boxes of meat, amongst other seasonings, all kinds of stuff, flour. They've got a lot going on out there. This is a business. So why isn't the primary function of the business the kids and this woman, because the dad, let's face it, has no social media by himself, why are they not being supported the way that they should be? The family dynamic is used to sell absolutely everything. So basically you've got family vloggers from scratch in this particular instance. They are making money hand over fist and selling a lifestyle that's really not attainable unless you have generational wealth like he does. But that's basically all the stuff in the article. Opinions are kind of all over the place on this one. I can understand, though, from where she came from, she was definitely coerced into this relationship, and the religious aspect is something that a lot of people really need to give more attention to. But at the end of the day, I just hope everything works out for everyone, especially the kiddos.
Here they come. I knew it was only a matter of time before the Ballerina Farms thing turned into a men with money are going to abuse you type of thing. Because every time it turns out that a woman who is married to or is dating a guy who has a lot of money is abusing her, the takeaway for y'all is always, well, that's what happens when you're a gold digger. This is what happens when you want to marry a man with money. And this is not a matter of men with money are going to treat you bad type of thing. This is a matter of men with bad character will treat you bad type of thing. Because the truth is, whether or not he had billions or a couple $100s, he still would have treated her the exact same way. He still would have worked her to the bone because he's an abusive man who happens to have a lot of money. One thing you ladies need to understand is that the men who are begging you to go 50-50 and still expect you to do all of the traditional household work at the end of the day, they're exactly like her husband. They're two sides of the same coin. The only difference is they don't have that amount of resources. The men who are telling you that's what she gets for marrying a billionaire could only dream of having that amount of money just so they can abuse women. So please don't be fooled. The ones who say that's what she gets for marrying a wealthy guy also want to abuse you and crush your dreams just like he did to her. Those same men who don't even have 1% of what he has also want you to be barefoot and pregnant back to back. Except they're also asking you for half of the rent at the end of the month. And what's really bothering me about this entire situation is the fact that some of y'all are trying to make abuse a thing that's exclusive to men with money. There are broke men who are doing horrible things to women right now, and there are wealthy men treating their wives like royalty. But what's interesting to me is that y'all will see women who are getting abused both physically and financially by broke men, but the comments under those videos are never, "This is what happens when you date a broke man." Because it's almost as if y'all understand that abuse isn't specific to broke men, even though it's a statistical fact that they abuse women the most. But when it's happening with a wealthy man, all logic goes out of the window. Wealthy men can abuse you. Broke men can also abuse you. And this is not to say pick your poison. This is to say watch out for their character, because abuse can and does happen in all tax brackets. A man who has multi-millions or billions that wants you to take care of 8 children around the clock with no help when he can afford it is not a man with good character. A man who expects you to go to work, come home, do all the cooking, cleaning, and childcare while standing there with his hand out for half of the bills is not a man with good character. Any man who wants you to give up your dreams for his is not a man with good character. Her marrying a billionaire doesn't mean that she should expect to be abused. The same way y'all get with these broke men and don't expect to be abused.
And then there was just there was so much on social media as well. I had the New York Times there kind of shadowing me for the week. I had the UK Times there asking me questions, and so much circulating on the internet about all the things. But I remember going into the interview and one of the judges saying, like, this seems like a lot right now. Like, how are you feeling? How are you doing it all? And I remember responding, like, I feel like a Mrs. World, you know, a woman who's representing the world. Like, honestly, all these events, I feel like have prepared me to be the best version of myself right now. Like, to stand in front of so many as a mother and a daughter and an advocate. And there's just so much compassion and love and power that I was feeling, that I really felt like the timing was perfect. So grateful. It was a beautiful experience in so many ways, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
What has caused so much discussion about Ballerina Farm, thanks to this wonderfully reported article, is that her reality is actually more sinister than we could have thought. The journalist makes a point to note that Daniel, her husband, interrupts her or answers for her constantly throughout this interview, and her husband actually said that she will go days where she can't get out of bed because of exhaustion. Hannah said that they sacrificed a lot in their first year of marriage, and the journalist presses her on that she says she gave up her career as a Juilliard-trained ballet dancer. That's really a huge sacrifice. When you see her dancing videos, it's just pure joy on her face and pure, like, just energy in her body. A lot of people say it was her own choice. Here we go. She said Daniel wanted to live in the Great Western Wilds. So they did. He wanted to farm. He didn't want nannies in the house. So there aren't any. Can you even imagine this? She gave birth to 8 kids, raised them all, and took care of the farm at the same time. She gave up her beloved ballet career, all of those entirely out of her own genuine desire. And here's the part that breaks my heart. She gave birth to so many kids without any pain meds. No epidurals, nothing. Because you know Mormon belief is that you can, or practice, is that you have a baby without any pain medication, not screaming, in a calm environment, just quiet, right? And she said Daniel wasn't there, and that was the only time she had gotten the epidural, and that he wasn't there because it was meat boxing day. And the way she says the epidural was great and then says it was great again. A lot of comments say she chose money and that she's happy. Maybe it's just that my understanding of happiness is different.
In April, I went to interview Hannah Neeleman, otherwise known as Ballerina Farm.
Tradwifery. What makes a tradwife? Who's a tradwife? What are these values that people are looking at? Because it seems like people's opinions are all over the place, so I'm going to explain it to you in a very finite way. One, we need to look at the name, traditional. You're a traditional wife, and usually that's looked at as biblically traditional. However, even traditional wives who are not practicing it from a religious standpoint, which is also a thing, are basing it on these American values and these basically Christian values of what a mother should look like, what a woman should look like, and what you should be doing with your life. Now, I never endorse the use of Wikipedia, as she's about to endorse the use of Wikipedia, but they did get it pretty spot on this one. And basically, it just denotes a woman who is living in traditional values, and these traditionalist values are typically based in the same source material, which is why a lot of people are like saying, you know, this is a Mormon thing. This is actually not just a Mormon thing, and it is all over the place. Let's see some traditional wife examples. Isabel Butker, she was not in the news a long time ago. Her husband was, because she was at home with the kids doing what he feels that she should be doing. This is a fundamentalist Catholic family. Michelle Duggar from the Duggar family, they have mix-ups with IBLP, which is the Institute in Basic Life Principles. I have a lot of content about this stuff. If you guys ever want to see some of this stuff, go through my playlists. This is not a new thing that I'm talking about, just so we're all clear on that. But they are fundamentalist Baptists also. Kelly Bates, former friends of the Duggars, and don't comment all the stuff, the Bates are the good ones. No, they're not. Google it. No. But Kelly, tradwife, Baptist, IBLP. This one, kind of Baptist, kind of non-denominational. You don't know who that is? It's me. If it seemed like I had a hell of a lot of insight after reading just one article, well, that would be because I'm an ex-tradwife, my dude. Could have been that. What are the most common paths that we see towards tradwifery? Well, one of the biggest ones that should be obvious is being raised in it. And a lot of the people who are coming from Mormon communities or extreme Baptist communities or anything like that, they've actually been raised in that environment. They've been told from when they were children that a woman's job really is to sacrifice. We're here to put ourselves last so that everyone else can be first. And that's just not really very fair. At all. Now, I've talked to a couple people who have a story that's like mine, so I was raised adjacent to this, and I was raised for a portion of my childhood in proximity to Christian identity teachings, which, if you don't know what that is, you can Google it, but it's gonna ruin your day. Christian identity, it's horrible. But I never really bought it, you know, pattern recognition, all this stuff. And as I was growing up, a lot of really horrible things happened. And at one point, I kind of went into this mindset that I must be being punished by God, and so maybe I'm just not living my life right. Let's just do this then. So keep in mind, in those obviously choices that were made, but some of the agency is removed because, like with me, I'm basically at a core level worried that I'm being punished on this earth, and then if I don't fix this, I'm gonna be on fire for the rest of the eternity. That's pretty persuasive. Someone's watching this thinking, oh my gosh, I have a friend who's a stay-at-home mom, and they like to go to church, and she likes to cook from scratch. Is she a tradwife? Does she have agency in her life? Does her partner consult her before he makes decisions? Is she allowed to go and have a girls' night out without him calling every 5 seconds? Does her husband refer to watching his own kids as babysitting? There's a lot of things in there, because if she has agency and she's an equal part in making decisions about money, house, otherwise, then no, she's a stay-at-home mom, not a tradwife. Those are not the same thing. Now, another part of the belief system that I didn't really understand, I've never been on that ever, and did not agree with this. You got to go back to that word traditional. They believe in traditional marriage values, which you know what that means. So they are not supportive of the LGBTQIA plus community in any way, and will actually actively speak out against it. Think Josh Duggar Family Research Council. That's on top of, and I think I kind of illustrated that, but just to reiterate, on top of not believing in women's body autonomy and all of that stuff. These are just very deeply conservative people. Now, the most common argument is people like me want to run into these houses and grab these women and tell them, "You be independent, Gina, let's go." No. If we go around and start telling everybody how to live their lives and what's the best thing for them and everything, how much different are we than the husbands? We're not. But a warning is all that I would like to get across, because I don't want other people to find themselves at almost 40 in my position. Because let me tell you, I don't talk about like my financial stuff or anything like that, but there are things that I didn't do that I wish I had. I gave up my career. I did all that stuff, and I'm glad that I spent that time with my kids, but I wish that I had worked harder to have security for them that came only from me. So at the end of the day, Trad Wives was just an amazing rebranding of something that's been going on for literally ever. We're just gonna call it something else now. But what can you do? You can not watch these videos. Don't buy stuff from them. Don't support their content. Because at the end of the day, if that's not lining up with your values, why would you anyway? Then on the other side, we remember that we can't run in like knights in shining armor and save people. That's just not how it works. And that the best we can do right now is keep talking about it, so hopefully other young women don't fall into this like we did. Anywho, there was so much more that I could say, but that's just like a basic overview. Have a good day.
And I asked her whether this was what she always wanted. Did you want to have a life this rurally when you were a kid and when you were a teenager?
No.
It's not what you imagined?
No. I mean, I was like, my goal was New York City, you know?
Wow.
Like, I left at 17, and I was like so excited to get to New York, and, you know, I traveled a lot, and I just loved that, you know, energy. But then
where you were going to be a ballerina, that's what you sort of dreamt of?
Yeah.
She wanted to be a professional dancer. And then Daniel came over and, you know, I asked him, like, was this what you always dreamt of? Did you dream of this? Is this what you wanted?
Yes, but, you know, the dreams, when you don't have it around you, I don't have any friends or relatives or anyone in this line of work. It took me until I was, you know, in my late 20s to, like, be able to identify, like, okay,
that's it.
I need to do this, and no one's going to help me do it. I'm going to have to do this by myself.
Me, Nara Smith, and the girl from Ballerina Farm all grew up in the same cult. The three of us kind of ended up representing the two extremes. Look at their perfect houses, their perfect husbands, their perfect children, these home-cooked meals that they're spending hours on, and I could not be more grateful for my one-bedroom apartment in the city, my 2 cats, and frozen pizza. Hannah from Ballerina Farm wanted to move to the city and be a ballerina, and she gave up on that dream to have children. I kind of feel like I'm living the dream she gave up on. Not a ballerina, obviously, the principal. The Mormon Church has a heavy influence on all of our types of content, because the Mormon Church pressures women to give up on their worldly desires in order to have as many children as possible as soon as possible. And that's the reason why all three of us are where we are today. They're making videos about being the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect homemaker, just like the Mormon Church taught them to be. And I'm making content to prove to myself and to other women who grew up around those same pressures that you can be happy without kids and that you don't have to do any of those things. But I wouldn't be making the content that I am making if I didn't grow up in a situation where I was so heavily pressured. And I'm not trying to start beef or make an enemy out of these women. They made their choices and they seem very happy with their choices, and that's wonderful. I just think it's really interesting the two ways that the three of us have gone, the two extremes. Now I have a Sprinkles cupcake with my name on it.
Some boys take a beautiful girl and hide her away from the rest of the world.
The pivot happening on Ballerina Farm is one to watch. You have seen these women for a very long time. Blank stares, the emotional exhaustion, right? The drone storytelling, the husband centering, the rapid family expansion, the loss of self and identity on one spectrum, and then on the other spectrum, all those things I just mentioned being packaged and presented as some sort of really fulfilling life. People who have been leading the anti-trad wife discourse, who would leave comments, on her page laying out the red flags, were met with nothing but backlash, being called haters and jealous. Or if the husband pops up in 1 or 2 videos, those same people would be in the comments saying, "See, I told you guys everything is fine and it's totally balanced." We have seen these women for generations. This existence, the strategic rebranding of devout service and devout sacrifice as aesthetic, disguising it as lifestyle. It is deeply ritual, and it is deeply connected to the cult these people are members of. Otherwise, tell me why Hannah gave birth to 8 kids without any pain medication, not screaming, in a calm environment, just quiet, right? Which is like almost the exact opposite of what childbirth is.
Here's what people aren't saying about Ballerina Farms that you need to know. Everyone's arguing about whether or not she's a victim. The truth is, she hasn't said she's a victim, so why are we all assuming that she is one? The last point that I'm going to make is the most important one of the 3. But here's the thing. Her own lack of awareness that she's in an abusive marriage doesn't mean that she's not in one. I didn't know that I was in an abusive relationship, and I hear that repeatedly from my clients. Most victims and survivors that I talk to only realize that it was abuse in hindsight. Manipulation, gaslighting, these might be things that contribute to not knowing, but I think in her case, it's actually just been the normalization of this kind of life for her entire life. Look at her conditioning. Consider her religious beliefs. These emphasize submission, not just traditional gender roles. Tell me we're not all watching all of these trad wives come out one by one talking about how they've been abused and manipulated the entire time. I could name 10 ex-trad wives off the top of my head who've come forward about this. When you grow up in that kind of environment, you are socialized, you are groomed to accept obedience and submission as part of your life. But that in and of itself makes you more susceptible to abusive dynamics. My next point is that the way that we idealize relationships, particularly on social media, it makes abuse so hard to see. Is she happy? Is she not happy? How do we know? Listen, all of these curated videos and curated posts, it masks the abuse. People keep arguing in the comment section that we can't make an assumption that she's being abused just based on the videos and the article that came out about her. And yet those same commenters are assuming that she's not being abused with the same videos and the same article. This idealized portrayal of her life is meant to make us think that she's happy. This is why that trad wife fantasy life is so dangerous. Now, here is the most important point. Everyone keeps talking about how we shouldn't feel bad for her because she's a rich white woman who has the resources to leave if she wants to. Race and wealth have nothing to do with abuse. Abuse affects everybody. It is so dehumanizing to just chalk it up to she's a rich white lady who can leave. First and foremost, the lack of resources is not the reason that most people don't leave. It's that they don't know that they're abused. It's that they feel like they can't leave. I personally think that the root of the lack of empathy that we're seeing from so many creators on this topic is actually angry jealousy. You think that she can leave at any time? What, just take half the business, right? Because it's in both their names? Actually, the business is in just his name. But that's not even the point, because honestly, we're just ignoring the concept of financial abuse. We think that because they are wealthy that she has access to leave. She might not have access to any of the resources. Now, she also might have access. We don't know. She's a trad wife. Who do you think controls the money? She submits to her husband. Maybe you think that her life is perfect and she curates it that way, so it makes sense. But if you see her as living this privileged life, that can trigger feelings of unfairness to you. I honestly just think that a lot of these creators resent the hell out of her. She's got this portrayal of the perfect family and success and wealth. Sometimes that can make people feel really inadequate, and that can spark jealousy. And to be fair, most people completely do not understand the complex dynamics of abuse. When people say, oh, she's wealthy, she can leave at any time, it honestly just shows how little they understand. The absolute ignorance of the people just blindly and repeatedly saying that she's not a victim is fostering this huge lack of empathy for her. Wealth, education, intelligence, absolutely none of that has to do with being in an abusive relationship. As for me, I absolutely think that she's in an abusive relationship, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if she went public and made it clear that she's not in an abusive relationship. And that will do nothing to convince me that she's not.
The creepiest detail about Ballerina Farm that nobody's talking about is that Daniel, the husband, not only the fact that he's from a family of billionaires because they own JetBlue and a bunch of other airlines, but that he met her, Hannah, via, quote, pulling strings at his father's airline to secure their first date. That's how he described it verbatim. That seems like such a weird, uncomfortable level of entrapment, especially considering the other detail where they go on their first date and she's like, yeah, let's keep dating for like a year. And he's like, no, we need to get married now and you need to get pregnant now. And you can't finish Juilliard. And you're going to be the youngest and only pregnant undergraduate from Juilliard in modern history.
Watching all that Ballerina Farm stuff, it really made me realize like how much I love feminism, especially womanism, especially the black and brown women that made sure that people who look like me can work, can get apartments, can get houses, yeah, can get hold positions of power. Because mind you, homegirl chose that life. I know it's a Mormon trade traditional wife life. She chose that life. She could have went to Juilliard. She could have fucked that guy. No. She chose that life, full through and through. However, in different countries, that's normal every single day. Girl, you got 8 children. You gotta provide for your husband and your children. That's a normal every day for them. Here, you guys could choose what you want to do with your life. You are your mother, your grandmother. They couldn't. We can. And it took millions of women to be like, we have rights. And you know what? Thank y'all. Thank y'all for all the little waves of feminism. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Some boys take a beautiful girl and hide her away from the rest of the world. I wanna be the one to walk in the sun of girls and they wanna have fun.
Oh my God, this is just so sad because I can just think about all the women, rich or middle class or poor or whatever, who just, they had dreams of something totally opposite, and then they just became stuck and trapped. And for a long time I grew up, and men will always say, oh, women trap men, women trap men. Honestly, men be trapping women. Okay, men trap women with the dreams. They trap women with these kids. They manipulate. They say they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then you just find yourself years later, in this world that you never thought that you would have for yourself. So I just want to say, ladies, just take precaution, and continue to follow your dreams, and don't let nobody steer you away from what you want to do, whether it's your man, your family, or your friends, because this is definitely, she always wanted to be a ballerina, and her husband, I don't know, but let me know in the comments below. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share, and also make sure that if you have a story that you want to tell, please comment that down below. And until next time, Rych Babes, see you.